Hey, this is SZLACHETKA. I'm about to tell you the story behind the song for Cutting the Firelines. So Cutting the Firelines for me started a few years ago when I was on tour in Northern California. I was in Redding, California. And over the past 10 years, Redding has become a really special place for me. It's like a second home, and I've got a lot of really important people in my life who live there. And it's just a wonderful community. And I was there for the first time after the terrible car fire had ripped through that community and pretty much decimated that town. And I was on a walk with a really close friend of mine on the Sacramento River Trail, and he was pointing out, how the fire came in, how it spread, how it deviated based on wind patterns. And he was talking about the term cutting the fire lines from what firefighters do to prevent the spread of the forest fire. And I really wasn't as familiar with that term. And he basically told me that, they literally just dig trenches throughout the hillside to prevent the spread of the fire. And so for me, that's when the green light went on, and I started thinking about the climate in this country and how divided we've become, even though really not that different. And I thought what we really have to do is just cut a fire line within ourselves to bridge that gap, so we can really just hear the other side. Doesn't matter what side you're on. In my opinion, we just have to have these conversations again. We gotta, meet in the middle. And so that's really what the main point of the song was for me. Needless to say, it had a profound effect on me. And after kind of taking it in, when I left Redding and I was heading up to Portland for a bunch of shows, I was driving on I-5, passing Lake Shasta, and just the entire countryside was just scorched. And that's when a lot of the first lyrics started coming to me, and I just cataloged them on my phone and tucked them away for when I got back to Nashville. It's funny because as soon as the idea hit me, I knew who I wanted to write this song with, and I knew that my buddy Mando was the perfect partner to co-write this song. I wrote Old Soul with him, and I've written, just a bunch of handfuls of songs, and we just have a great rapport. And I brought the idea to him, and kind of like Old Soul, I kind of had like a finger-picked idea. So we were definitely thinking, more of a somber tune was the vibe we wanted to go for. And in terms of the melody, we just kind of reverted to kind of really chiming in on what the fingerstyle guitar thing was doing. It was like, and that coincides with
last night our innocence went up in flames, got us in our sleep, and we'll never be the same. Now there's mountains burning on both sides, bruised horizon, sign of attack. And each verse is just slightly different. There's slight little play on words. Each chorus starts with a different phrase to kind of have development. And I look forward to writing more and more songs with Mando. But he's a good friend, and we just have such a great rapport together anytime we write a song, and it's just really easy. I think we had this song written probably within an hour. And this is the guitar I wrote the song on. This is my Martin OM28V. It's somewhere between like a 2002 or 2003 model. I've written a ton of songs on this, including most of the songs on this album. And it's one of my main workhorse guitars, whether it's live or in the studio or writing a song. This thing just delivers all the time, and it's like putting on a pair of your favorite boots or jeans. It's just so comfortable, and I know it like the back of my hand. But interesting enough, we thought this was going to be the guitar that we used on the recording, but when we got to the studio, made a couple last-minute decisions. So after trying out a bunch of different acoustic guitars, we decided to try out the electric guitar world. And I thought that my ES335 was going to be the one, because we were looking for just that fat, warm, rich, hollow body electric tone, which this totally delivers. But my good buddy Ford let me borrow his Gretsch Country Gentleman, and when we plugged that in, that was the exact tone we were looking for. So I had a gorgeous burgundy, deep hollowbody Gretsch Country Gentleman, which is what we cut the vocals and guitar live at the same time. It was one of those things where there's certain songs as well that I just feel completely attached to what I'm doing guitar-wise and vocally, and this was one of those. Like a lot of the other songs, we cut guitar and then I sang over it or cut a scratch vocal while I was playing guitar. But this one, I just cut the vocals and the guitar live, and I think just because of the marriage between the melody on the guitar and the voice, for me, it's really hard to kind of separate that. And in terms of like just getting as much emotion that's required for a song like this, so we just went for it. And I think if I remember correctly, we probably did only 2 or 3 takes, and yeah, it was great. We cut the drums, keyboards, and bass and vocal and guitar live, and then just did minimal overdubs. This is one of the other songs we completely cut at Blackbird Studio A in Nashville, and Scott Underwood played drums, and Christian Wood played bass. He had a beautiful hollowbody Hofner that he used. Jimmy Wallace played keys. He played organ and Fender Rhodes on this, and then Sarah Eiley sang harmonies. One of the examples that we were kind of using as a reference going into this process was if you've ever watched the film noir Western, it's called Dead Man. It's a Johnny Depp movie that came out in the early to mid 90s. Neil Young did the soundtrack, and a funny story is it's an awesome soundtrack if you ever get a chance to check it out, and it's just very, very experimental. It's almost like a Daniel Lanois type of vibe. A lot of just really, really awesome hollow body distorted guitars with delays and echoes and reverbs and stuff. And when we were doing pre-production, I brought up that movie and that soundtrack as a reference to Scott, who produced the album, and he actually had that same soundtrack as like one of his main references for this song. So it was just another, superfluous moment. And when it came time for the guitar solo, I used an electric baritone guitar. And if you're not familiar, a baritone guitar basically bridges the gap between a guitar and a bass. It's kind of like, like a viola for a stringed instrument in terms of like the violin world. So it's got that extra low tone, not quite as low as a bass, but more low and more rich than a guitar. And I ran it through my 62 Princeton and a brown face Vibrolux, and I put all of the pedals on my pedal board to get just that amazing distortion and feedback and delay. And I was basically dancing to the feedback in one of the main tracking rooms, and it was just such a moment that I'll always cherish. But yeah, it also turned out to be one of the hardest songs to mix because aside from a song like Old Soul, where there literally was just acoustic guitar and voice, there were very minimal overdubs and tracks on this song. So the bass frequencies in particular were like really, really particular and very, very hard to mix and dial in, so that way you could hear every aspect of what we tracked. So
love was lost to pride. You couldn't put out what was burning us inside. You could pray for rain, I could pray for yesterday. If the sky came crying, it would be a day too late. Don't shed no tears for me, ain't nothing else here to see anymore. Just a ghost of California, never knew it was here till it was gone. Now we're caught in the Firelines again.
the other cool thing about about the production is that we wanted the voices to almost be ghost-like. So what we had Sarah do in the studio is she sang a high octave of what I was singing, and she did it in a falsetto. And then for the choruses, she came in with just a regular harmony. And when we were mixing, we wanted the high octave that she sang to just be so faint where it almost played a trick on your ear, and it had like a ghost-like characteristic. So that way, you know, sometimes you wonder if it's there, sometimes you don't know if it's there, and sometimes you do know if it's there. And it was just another great mixing aspect of the song that, you know, I just really love, and so happy how it came out, and so happy that you guys can hear it now.